Hello everyone, Moriarty here with Team Bandit Gang, bringing you the third instalment of my impromptu trilogy of Syndicate entries, where in this edition I want to talk to you all about Jason Slammer, Walter Veritas, the Truthseeker.
Where have I seen him before?
Walter Veritas was a Novigradian spy and detective from the esteemed Veritas family of sleuths and intelligence operatives. After the passing of his father, Victor Veritas, Walter became the de facto patriarch of the Truthseekers, a detective agency in Novigrad. After his father's death, he was tasked by Grand Inquisitor Helvide to follow, research, and investigate the ruling gangs and underworld figures of Novigrad.
The amulet. Think it'll save you? Think again.
As the Inquisitor even suspected Hierarch Hemmelfart of under-the-table dealings.
The eternal fire lights our way.
I'm fortunate that we have access to a wealth of Walter Veritas' writing, which was used as means to tease and reveal information about the Syndicate faction before its release in Gwent. Here I'll go through each of the entries in typical Lore Blast punchiness, and leave a link in the description to where you can see them all in full. Entry 1. In the first entry, Veritas details the journals his father left him and the note he had left behind. Walter, if you're reading this, it means my life and my journal have come to an end. Remember that discovering the right truth is the key to our family's success. Let this journal be your tool for gathering your thoughts and discoveries. The time has come for you to become a truth seeker. Be careful, however, for some truths are better left buried. I know you shall make me proud. Good luck, Victor Veritas. He goes on to explain that his father had been far more cautious in his use of the truths he found after Veritas' grandfather had been executed for reaching too close to the sun, leveraging what he had learned over nobility and royalty. Veritas then considers if his tiny inheritance is due to this, and if fear prevented his father from further glory. He closes the entry thusly. Entry 2. In the second entry, Veritas visits his deceased father's office situated above a brothel owned and operated by Madame Louisa. He explains how it is rumoured she once worked as a prostitute herself, though any who could confirm this are no longer with us. He explains how, when entering her brothel, each patron is greeted by the sight of the large, bald woman, flanked by two of her girls, as she observes and engulfed in a maelstrom of tobacco smoke.
You hurt my girls, I'll rip your knob off. Is that clear?
Describing it, he says, the sensation one feels upon entering her brothel must not be unlike how an insect feels, moments before being tangled in a spider's web. He swiftly made a move up to his new office, after a terse reminder from the madame that her brothel was not a charity, and that she expected prompt pay for his rental. Upstairs, Veritas hoped his father had left him sufficient funds to pay his way as he began. Finding the family safe half empty, and lamenting his father's illness, Veritas also found a letter addressed to him, and sealed with the sigil of a roaring fire. It carried within it instructions for a clandestine meeting. Veritas attended, and met Grand Inquisitor Helvide. Helvide explained that the leader of the Church of Eternal Fire, Hierarch Hemmelfart, been undertaking secret meetings at his estate. The Inquisitor wished for Veritas to find out more. Entry 3. On Helvide's direction, Veritas awaited the next confirmed instance when Hemmelfart had taken an escort, and headed to the estate that the Inquisitor had described. He broke in early, and scouted out its contents. Finding the dwelling largely empty, save for a table and chairs which had no doubt been set out for the meeting, Veritas elected to hide in a nearby wardrobe, buried in cloaks and hats, and cramped into its dusty confines. He awaited the meeting. Several hours later, a dwarf arrived, a particularly intimidating and fierce-looking specimen of the species, who lit a map on the table. Second, he recognised Gudrun, as her tide cloaks had often harassed him on the docks. She paced and appeared tall and self-assured. Next, a gaunt, thin man wearing nothing on his top half save for a range of tattoos, then a tall and mysteriously masked man, and finally, the Hierarch himself. What Veritas witnessed was apparently a negotiation. The individuals bent and gestured over the map, voices climbed and fell, insults were bandied and arguments were made for this place and that. It seemed that no one present was happy, and as time passed the grumbling and hostility grew more and more aggressive, until threats of violence were thick in the air. This was only broken then by a voice Veritas couldn't see, someone who he did not see enter. His heart jumped into his throat, and his nerves froze solid, as he feared this mysterious person may have seen him. He awaited for the moment those wardrobe doors would swing open, but that never came. Instead, This strange voice calmed those present, tossed a mysterious coin onto the table, and the assembled rogues went their separate ways. Veritas waited in that wardrobe for many hours, until dawn broke the gloom, before he dared venture out. Entry 4. In the fourth journal entry, Veritas elects to scout for more information via Gudrun's tide cloaks on the docks, rather than return to Helvede right away, as he feared the consequences of returning to the Inquisitor with what he had so far. There, he found Gudrun and her tide cloaks drinking and celebrating,
Yous picked a fight with the wrong kind of Skelliger.
and he even witnessed the halfling Binky scale a building with preternatural agility.
Shoes only get in the way.
Veritas noted a trio of dwarves approach and exchanged with Gudrun a singular gold coin for a large crate, which they trudged off with shortly after. This paltry sum for such a large container intrigued the detective, and though he attempted to follow them after the deal, he lost them at High Rock Square and elected to retire for sleep. Entry 5. In his own words grasping at straws, Veritas elected to follow a loose lead of a recent murder supposedly committed by Thurko the Sculptor.
Now this is a knife.
Hiding out in an alleyway disguised as a beggar, he spent many hours there lying in wait until finally he saw a dwarf, one of the three from the docks, walk through an old door into one of the buildings. Veritas followed him inside and saw the crate from the docks inside the empty room. It was opened, but empty. Veritas heard voices down in the cellar of the building, and so, steeling himself for what he might see, the detective descended a few of the stone steps to try and take a look. There, he saw Cleaver,
Snitches get stitches.
standing over and threatening a man who had supposedly betrayed the Crown Splitters. He told him he would have loved to deal with him the old-fashioned way, but he had other ideas. Then, a great boar was revealed in the room, clad head to hoof in armour. The captured man was given a chance to escape, if he could only best Sir Skewertooth. I wish I could record that his fate was worthy of a ballad, Veritas wrote. Alas, the horrific scene that unfolded as the boar tore through flesh and bone left me feeling deeply sickened. After witnessing the sight, Veritas retreated out of the building and back into the anonymity of the crowds. Entry 6. Veritas was finally forced to report to Helvede in Entry 6. Seized and all but abducted by soldiers of the Eternal Fire, Helvede informed Veritas that he was impatient and tired of waiting for his report. Veritas explained all he had discerned so far and what he was presently investigating. Helvede paid him and tasked him with something further. The Church's power, it seemed, was slipping, and Helvede had concerns about the disappearances of Eternal Fire acolytes and zealots who were all lost whilst working directly with the Hierarch. Veritas agreed, though he lamented as to what he had gotten himself into. Entry 7. With the money Helvede had paid him, Veritas paid off his debts to Madame Louisa, and with renewed vigour commenced his search for the missing Eternal Fire zealots. Though he struggled to make much ground over the next few days, just when he considered it time to call off his search, his persistence was rewarded. He identified a gaggle of 4 Eternal Fire neophytes and followed them carefully through the streets. They led him to the Bits, of all places, and descended down into its belly. Veritas had heard about apparent arena battles and skirmishes undertaken beneath the ground for profit, glory, or as a distraction. And so, spending the last of his earnings to grant himself entry and place a wager, one he places on a mysterious fighter known only as Tatterwing. Once inside, he saw the Hierarch and the skinny, tattooed man from the secret meeting. Resolving to stand near them, he turned his eyes to the arena. Below, the 4 Eternal Fire students he had followed stood in a small cluster, clutching rusty and beaten swords. The ring announcer, Igor,
Fame and coin, all you need to push a man to murder.
introduced Horson Jr. Given Veritas the thin man's name before announcing the arrival of Tatterwing. The wyvern erupted from the stocks and tore the priests to death in a matter of moments. Junior gave Hemmelfart 2 of the same strange coins he had seen at the docks, and after an exchange of angry negotiation, the hierarch left with his 2 coins, and the night was concluded. Entry 8. Veritas returns to Helvede with his findings, and though the Inquisitor throws a heavy coin purse at him, he doesn't show as much outward concern as the detective had expected. Still, well paid and off the proverbial hook, Veritas returned to his study to gather his thoughts. When he consulted his journal, panic gripped him. A lipstick mark, a kiss, had been left in his journal for him to find. Someone had been reading his notes, scouring his secrets. It must have been one of Madame Louisa's girls, he thought. With no other option, Veritas resolved to confront the intimidating Madame and find out why his belongings had been disturbed. When he arrived downstairs to the smoky room he knew Louisa to haunt, he found no one immediately there. He stepped carefully through the room until the sight of a man drinking in the corner alone gave him pause. Empty of options, Veritas walked over and sat with the man. He noted the Nilfgaardian pin on his hat and sized up his allegiances at once. Then the man spoke. He explained he was Dodric Lomertz.
I bring fair wishes from the capital.
He explained he had been waiting for Veritas and was a fan of his writing. Given the lipstick kiss was unlikely to be his, Veritas wrestled with the notion that numerous people had seen his journal. Lomertz put this to bed, explaining the girl had been instructed to leave the mark to grasp his attention, and nothing more. Lomertz explained that the brothel Veritas dwelled at was in fact a blind eyes organisation, owned by the mysterious King of Beggars, an individual Lomertz believed would have been at the first secret meeting. In exchange for this, he asked Veritas to detail his investigations thus far. Lomertz left a note behind, and left Veritas to his musings. Entry 9. Veritas met Lomertz just outside the city, and awaited him there for several hours. When the Nilfgaardian arrived, he tossed a mysterious coin into the detective's hand. It was unlike any coin he'd ever seen, bearing a strange crest and carrying the motto, Syndicate Unbreakable Vow. He explained that he, like Veritas, did not understand the coin's intent or its significance, only that Francis Bedlam, the King of Beggars,
So, how are things?
had instructed all his personnel to accept it as fair trade for any of their services when possible, and that if they accepted one of these coins and failed to deliver, that even he would be unable to protect them. Veritas probed a little at what Lomertz wanted, though the Nilfgaardian met these attempts with surliness and hostility. Finally, he tasked Veritas with using this coin to find out the identity of the last mysterious person at the gangland meeting, and to discern what the significance is of these coins. Veritas asked, again, why Nilfgaard cared so much about this last gang leader. Lomertz grew icy, and wondered if Veritas was going to make the same mistake as his grandfather. Fearing he was pushing too far, Veritas ceased his questioning. Entry 10. In his final entry, Veritas resigns himself to drinking on the docks, once again absent of any real plan. After a few brews of courage, he noticed a group of tide cloaks absent of Gudrun, drinking and merrymaking the table over. He recognised the halfling, Binky, from a day previous, and overheard them toasting to her exploits. With alcohol to fuel him, he wandered over and sat down, and was not immediately rejected or accepted. He wrestled with how he might use this coin to get an avenue into the gang's dealings when he drank another mead. A terrible mistake. He awoke hours later, with his head feeling like it had been replaced with an anvil. When he looked over, he saw Lomertz, prone, bloodied, and beaten. A man approached them, limping and clutching a cane. Veritas knew this must have been the last member from the meeting. He introduced himself as Siggy Reuven, but Veritas wasn't fooled. He knew from his father's vivid descriptions and drawings who this was. Count Dijkstra, Redanian spy master.
See me smiling? I'm dead serious.
Reuven thanked Veritas for bringing the Nilfgaardian agent's existence to his attention, and Veritas then realised what had happened. In his drunken stupor, he used Lomertz as his bargaining chip rather than the coin. It made sense. Lomertz knew too much and had threatened him already. In one swift motion, Reuven slit Lomertz's throat with a blade concealed in his cane, and in his next breath offered Veritas a job. When the detective questioned its nature, all Reuven told him was that he expected his unconditional allegiance and trust. Uncertain but excited, Veritas accepted the offer and returned back to his study to collect himself, his mind racing over the prospects of the future. And that's all of the entries on Walter Veritas. We'll leave a link below to the page where you can see all the journal entries yourself if you'd like to read them in full rather than listen to my paraphrased version. At any rate, that's all from me for this episode of Lore Blast. I hope you all enjoyed this one. Be sure to leave a like and post a comment of what you'd like to see next, and subscribe to Team Bandit Gang for more. I've been Moriarty, and I will see you next time.
And we're doing another giveaway for a subscription to the Bandit Gang YouTube channel, and the winner is... Oh, exciting! Woo! The winner is... It's you! Woohoo! You just activate that subscription down below. Congrats!